What's going on, guys and gals? Darth back with another Queen's Blade limit break video, and I actually should have made this one a long time ago. I've actually been getting a lot of questions related to this particular subject matter, and I'm talking about the fusion and upgrade process, also better known as ranking up or starring up your warriors. And I've gotten a lot of heavy questions around that. Now I realize I made a video, crappy as it may be, I did make a video about raising your level where I referenced starring up, but I never actually circled back to covering the fusing process or the ranking up process, the starring up process of your actual warriors. So I am going to actually circle back, and we're going to do that over the course of a few smaller videos, because the only way I know how to do it is to do it in a way that makes sense by giving you a couple of smaller videos rather than one long, drawn out and confusing video. I'm going to break them down. But in order for me to get into the actual fusing part and upgrading part with some details, because there's a lot there, I need to give you the foundation and the basics in order to understand that first, so that we can flow into actually upgrading your warriors so as not to confuse you with all the different aspects. So we're going to do that today, and we're going to take a look at a couple of things. We're going to take a look at the warrior index, because that's where it all starts. We're also going to take a look at the temple. We're going to take a look at each of the warriors, what their function is, how to read them, and we're going to take a look at we're going to touch a little bit on inventory management. The game calls it farewelling, so if anybody says farewelling, they're referring to deleting warriors to keep your inventory clean. That's all they're referring to. We'll take a look at that, and then at the end of the video, we'll kind of take a look at a few ways to obtain warriors, because some people think it's a little bit more difficult than it really is, but with time and patience, I think that you'll come to understand how the fusion process works, and then hopefully by the end of both videos, be able to make a good decision on when to sacrifice certain types of warriors and how to do it efficiently. So let's start with the basics. Let's go into the warrior screen here, take a look at the index, and just to note, the game does actually give you a brief description under the recommended and basics. It does give you a small portion into 5-star beautiful warriors and how to read them. Go ahead and take a look at this when you get a chance, how to read their passives, how to read their skills, but we're going to cover all that in a little bit more detail than the game does. So go back out to your main detail page, and for the sake, I'm going to just click on just the mind attribute. Just keep in mind that all attributes work the same with one exception, and that is the ultimate warriors. They are different, although the fusion process is very, very similar. It's a little more complicated because it's much harder to get these warriors, and taking a look at these, we'll probably do a much smaller third video later on. So let's just go back to the mind attribute, and just keep in mind they all work virtually the same. Warriors come in a variety of different rarities. This should be something you're familiar with if you're used to these kind of games, starting with white, green, blue, purple, orange, and there's actually a third color that's red. Once you fuse a warrior up to 6-star, they're actually considered red warriors, and above they're actually just red. Now that is weird considering that SP warriors here have a different color, but technically they're going to be a combination of red and whatever this color is as you level them up anyway. So you got your 1-star whites, you got your 2-star greens. They are basically useless, and they do have a bit of a purpose in providing you with currency once deleted. We'll take a look at that, but essentially they just give you a small amount of growth stones and warrior XP, which is needed. Some caveats and some tips there that we'll go over once we get to look at all of these warriors at the same time and the currencies they provide. But then you move on to your blues and your purples, and these kind of work together. Blues on their own, rank 3 warriors, are again useless, although they do provide a currency upon deletion, much like the white and greens, which again we'll take a look at here in a second. But when you move up to the purple warriors, useless on their own again. But when you infuse a certain amount of blues into these purple warriors, they actually become 5-star versions of themselves. You can actually create, it's not here on the index, they're kind of like secret warriors, and this is what confuses some people. You get each one of these purple warriors on the different attributes here, you know, mind, physical, skill, they all have their own purple warriors. They can all be upgraded to 5-star versions of themselves. And this is where your start of your 5-star warriors actually comes in. Now they can't be upgraded any further than 5-star, which what that means is that they're your primary source of 5-star infusion material. If you've been through the process of upgrading a warrior already, which you probably should have, the game kind of walks you through it, you notice that a lot of warriors start with needing a certain amount of either themselves or 5-star infusion. It's what we call fodder. So fusing a certain amount of blues into purples, and again, we won't get into specifics on this into the next one, but just know that each of these purples can become 5-star versions of themselves, thus becoming your primary source of 5-star infusion fodder. Just want to reiterate because they can't be upgraded past 5 stars. We'll take a look at that here a little bit later on in the video because I do want to mention it, even though we'll go into more details in the next video. Let's move on to the orange warriors, the gold warriors, I'm sorry. Because there's some caveats here, and this is partly why I wanted to start with the basics first, is because you need to know how to read the warriors. Going back to what you saw on the recommended screen here, they can be identified by how many skills they have and what their level of their passives are. So we already know your primary source of 5-star fusion is these purples. Well, how do you get 6, 7, 8, and so forth in fusion? Well, if you start from the bottom here and you go up, you're going to notice that some warriors only have 3 skills. Okay, this is a good indication that they are lesser warriors. I like to call them lesser warriors. They don't have the potential that other warriors do, because as you start to get up into other warriors, you start to notice that they have 4 skills. Now this could be any combination of actual abilities or passives. If you've been playing the game any length of time, you notice that some warriors have more activatable skills in combat, and others have more passive activation skills depending upon the conditions. But that's not the only way you identify these warriors. What they were talking about in the recommended page is that the passives on their second ability, second from the left, so you always go from the left to right, their second ability is always going to be a passive, providing a bonus to whatever primary attribute stat that benefits their role. We're talking about tank, support, warrior, or mage. Warrior and mage is DPS. Support can be anything from buffers to debuffers to healers. Tanks are obviously tanks. So you're going to notice a varying degree of, on this one, even though it's a support, they have healing plus X%, attack, and HP. You move on to another warrior who has 4 skills. You notice a slight increase in the attack, HP. Sometimes it'll have defense, sometimes it'll have speed, but you'll notice a slight increase. One may have, these lesser warriors had, what, 30%? These ones have 35%, so forth. Now, another interesting thing to note is that as you start going up the line here, you're going to notice that some warriors, although having 4 skills, still have they continue to increase slightly in their passive, their second passive skills, up to about 40, 20. And then you're going to start noticing additional passives like crit rate, crit resistance, immobilization increases, certain readable support stats that they may actually be able to activate. They are going to be a higher tier of warrior than even these 4-star warriors. Does that make sense? I hope so. If you don't need, go back and re-listen to that, because we're going to actually talk about another way to tell the warriors apart. And this is more important when it comes to upgrading and needing 6-star warriors for infusion material, 9-star and above. If you've fused higher level warriors, you have come to know that it's not just 5-star warriors you need. Eventually the warriors will start requiring 6-star versions. Then again, when you get to 9-star, they're going to require 9-star versions. So let's just go back to this, to Noel here. I want you to take a look at their star level. This is where you view their maximum star level. Some warriors can only be upgraded to a certain, I don't know why that actually says what it is, but certain warriors can only be upgraded to a certain star level. These purple warriors down here, when fused up, can only go to 5. Some warriors can only go to 6, which I think actually they changed because they used to be able to only go to 6. Now they can go up to 9. So the maximum star potential is 9, meaning that although these purples may be your primary source for 5-star infusion fodder, these warriors with 3 skills are going to be the ones that you want to take up to 6 and 9-star respectively as you need that level to infuse into higher level warriors. What it also means is that these lesser warriors, even these ones down here with smaller passives, are more common and easily obtainable warriors. Not just through summoning, with your scrolls and various things like that, but also in the currency shops, making them far easier to get. So, white, green, useless, deletable. Blue infused into purple, 5-star. Lesser warriors with 3 skills and low passives, but these ones are easily identified because they have only 3 skills. These are the ones you're going to want to take to 6 stars and above, respectively, depending upon your infusion needs. Then you want to move on to the other lesser warriors, but you definitely never want to delete, at least without knowing what you're doing, blue, purple, and any gold ranked warrior. That's going to depend on a few things. Inventory management. So let's go take a look at inventory management. We're all going to have a different level of how many warriors that we can sustain, depending upon your VIP level. I can hold 700 warriors, but that doesn't mean that my inventory doesn't get overburdened with various warriors. That's where the temple comes in handy, but the temple here is going to be where you're going to actually do the ranking up and infusion, which we'll cover in the next video. But it's also where the delete function is actually at. I mentioned that each one of these warriors can be deleted. All warriors can be deleted. Doesn't mean you should. But they all provide a varying degree of currency. Let's just click on a blue one here. When you go into Farewell, white and green are only going to provide growth stones and warrior XP in a much smaller amount. But when you start deleting blue and above, you get an additional currency called soul stones. These soul stones, like a lot of other currencies, can be spent in the shop to obtain warriors. So it's not that you don't necessarily want to delete warriors. Unfortunately, because most of the blue and purple warriors are useful, you want to delete them sparingly, and only after you have fused as many as you can. But when your inventory becomes overburdened, you're going to want to come here and you're going to want to start deleting blue star warriors. As a rule of thumb for me, I typically have on hand at any given time 20 of each attribute warrior. I can actually get away with having 10 to 15 because I get a ton of advanced summoning scrolls, which is where you obtain these warriors. So let's back out and take a look at your primary source for obtaining these warriors. Under the summon function here, you're going to have normal and advanced summoning scrolls. You should be familiar with this. Normal summoning scrolls can give you all types of warriors, primarily white and green, sprinkled in with some blues. On the rare occasion, it will give you purples. On the super, super rare, you can get gold warriors. I have gotten gold warriors. But as you can see, I actually get way more advanced summoning scrolls. And you should too as you progress through the game, using these kind of, whatever. They did add a farewell button here where you can automatically select 2-star and lower so that when you summon, you can actually automatically just get rid of the warriors for the various currency. Now your special summons are where you're going to get the vast, vast majority of your blue and purple warriors, sprinkled in with some gold warriors. Again, should be familiar to you, but you can't summon anything lower than blue. So when you're summoning with special summoning scrolls, just understand that as you get blue and purples, you need to fuse them up to gold warriors to be ready to be used as fusion and fodder. You shouldn't actually have to do too much deleting, but if you do deleting, it's usually going to be blue warriors because they're hogging up your inventory. Never delete a purple warrior. They should always be used for infusion 5-star upgrades. Now, there's one caveat to that. Again, managing your inventory, you may be faced with a decision to delete purple warriors. Maybe you're in the market here on the exchange and you want to pick up a Swift Tracer and you're short on these soul stones. Then you need to make the decision to go ahead and delete a few purple warriors in order to put yourself at that maximum to get your half demon queen or swift tracer. It's all about decisions. And the same thing, even more so, goes when you actually start doing fusion. We'll talk about that one in the next one, but that's the basics for now, guys. That's pretty much the foundation that you will need to understand warriors as we move into the next video where we actually talk about fusing warriors. One of the other reasons, just to let you know, that I say never delete a purple warrior, they go to 5-star warriors. It gets more complicated because you're going to have to keep track of what warriors actually need specific 5-star warriors in order to be fused. That's just a preview of what's to come. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section, guys. Hopefully I can answer those. Hopefully this was at least somewhat educational for you. Maybe not for advanced players, but I did need to circle back. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.